It's indeed a privilege and an honour to be here this morning to speak to the people of Foresters Beach Church. It's such a wonderful church. I've only been here for a short period of time and haven't had much time to get to know all of you, but I've certainly had some great relationships and friendships with the elders and deacons and members of prayer teams. To start with, I can't begin this testimony from the start of my life. We just don't have time for that. I'm not a young person anymore. The part that will be of interest to you here at Foresters would be from the time that Carol and I came and worship with you. I wanted to get involved, so I joined the Friday evening prayer group on Zoom. And I got quite a kick out of that, thoroughly enjoyed it, and it kept me in tune with the church. So just to give you an outline of our past, I emigrated from England back in 1957. I was only 14 years old with my mother and sister, came out on the steamship Aronsay. So some of you may remember her. She is a 27,000-tonne passenger ship and was constantly going backwards and forwards into Sydney Harbour, bringing Australian emigrants out. I started my working life as an apprentice shipwright at Her Majesty's Australian Naval Dockyard, Garden Island in Sydney. In 1959, I met Carol in Neutral Bay and we married in 1961. We eventually completed building our family of 3 girls and twin boys whilst living on the Hawkesbury River. We had no road access there, so it was quite a challenge at a young age. That's yet another story. Won't go into that one right now. Today's testimony starts in April 2022, so it's only just after we came and joined Foresters Church. It was just after my 80th birthday, which we celebrated at Waee Church Hall with a great turn-up of family and friends. A few days after my birthday, I went to see my doctor. His name is Arthur. And we went there to get a COVID booster, but on arrival I started breathing heavily as I walked up the hill and came in puffing away to speak to the doctor. Sorry, I just got myself lost. But on arrival, started breathing heavily. The doctor said, "We need to see what's going on here." He was tapping around on my back and said, "Looks as though you've got pneumonia." He kept on tapping and said, "This is too high for a pneumonia. Go straight to PRP for an X-ray." And so we got the film, and the very next day, it was so quick. It came in by email, and the doctor called me to come and see him. The doctor had a grave expression on his face, and he said, "This is very serious. It's mesothelioma." I looked at him quizzically. Mesothelioma. He said, "You know what it is? Asbestosis." I did mention that I worked at Garden Island Dockyard, and many of my friends had passed on with mesothelioma or asbestosis as we knew it then. Their expected life after first diagnosis was extremely short, 6 months, maybe 18 if you're lucky. So some of you may know somebody who has passed on with this disease. The thing was that the people I knew at Garden Island weren't particularly churchgoers. We used to use an entirely different language to what we use here in church. And we were working amongst very difficult conditions in ships, in boiler rooms, in engine rooms, which were all lagged and coated in asbestos. I finished my working life at Garden Island as a technician, a marine technician, and we used to do inspections. And my job, one of my many jobs, was to inspect the ventilation systems in the engine rooms and fire rooms and the rest of the ship. And a lot of the problems that we had was that the systems were just not working properly. So somebody needed to go up there and have a look inside. And I wasn't particularly concerned. I went and had a look. And where the ventilation went round corners, they had an arrangement of things called splitters. And they were just one white wall of loose asbestos dust. And I was in there with it. So I don't know whether I picked it up there or in my earlier apprenticeship as I went through my shipbuilding trade. This cancer is a slow-moving type of cancer. It took up about 20% of the pleural chamber and was leaking fluid into the pleural cavity at the rate of 1.5 litres of blood-stained fluid every month. Naturally, I was having difficulty breathing. And whilst I waited for a hospital bed in North Shore Private, the level went up to 2.4 litres in the 6 weeks. The surgeon carried out a procedure using talcum powder slurry. So they mix up the slurry of talcum powder and open up the chest cavity and place this slurry around on the pleural cavity walls. The result was not good, as the drainage was too great and washed the slurry out straight away. Whilst in North Shore, I must have picked up an intestinal germ, which was not fun. I need someone to turn my page. No, thanks, Donna. On returning home, I came down with a bad case of diarrhoea. It lasted for 6 weeks, and over a short time I lost 12 kilograms. I had 3 types of antibiotic to try and control the problem, but the immune system was giving up. And Doc Arthur, my GP, was relieved to see the bug was at last responding. Lisa, my nursing daughter, said to Carol she didn't hold much hope for my recovery and we should get the family together. The Foresters prayer team got to work, as well as YE church friends. I have a great sense of the power of prayer and just accepted my lot. I laid myself before God, and after all, I had had a good life, a very full life, a very interesting life, and done a lot of things, which we can talk about at another testimony one day. After some degree of recovery, my oncologist gave me the option of chemotherapy, a trial, or immunotherapy. Prayer once again guided us to take immunotherapy. I was fitted with a smart port. It's up here, a bit of a lump. And each time I go back to the hospital, to the oncology section, I have a needle stuck in there, as many of you probably know all about chemotherapy. So it's the same type of treatment. But the thing with immunotherapy is that it boosts the immune system to such a level that it is intended to diminish the cancer. So it was still draining at 1.5 litres a month. Prayers continued to stream up from Foresters Beach and from YE and with other Christian friends who don't belong to a church particularly, but They still love God. The community nurse was arranged to look after me at home and continued the drainage on a weekly basis. First, 1 litre. Second, 0.75 litres. And progressively over a period of time, went right down to 40 millilitres, sorry. So we were quite amazed at this reduction of fluid loss. So I was sent off to another CAT scan. The cancer had reduced down from 20% of the pleural cavity, which was stopping the lung from expanding, to a thin white line around the pleural wall. Of course, this is not the end of treatment for this inoperable cancer. I'm not as gullible enough to believe that it's all over. This intervention, the divine intervention, which caused us to make decisions based on our church teachings, I took a relaxed view of the situation and surrendered myself into the hands of God. At the moment, I'm enjoying a good and normal lifestyle. I only need another 4 kilos to be back to normal weight. Next week, the pleural drain will be removed, and we continue to pray for this healing care and the love of Jesus. John 3:16 says, God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, Jesus. If you believe in him, you will have everlasting life. If you turn your back on him or deny him, you will not. John 14 says, do not let your heart be troubled, for where I am going, you will come also and know the way to come. Thomas said, we do not know the way. Jesus said, how is this possible? We have been together for a long time, and you say you don't know who I am or where I'm going. Jesus and his disciples were only together for about 3 years. But I hope we know a little better, or know him a little better, I should say. Living with him for more than 50 years. Are you going to say, how do I get there when the time comes? Philip says, show us the Father. Jesus says, how is this possible? We have been together for such a long time, and you do not realise you are looking at him now in me. Are you like Philip? These are just 2 texts, among others, that I have hung on to over the past year and way before to help me to connect with the Lord, my Jesus. So that's my testimony. However, I like to sing. And I hope you'll excuse me, I'm not really a good singer. But there was a song we sang this morning called In Christ Alone. And I'd love if we can have the singers, no, you stay there for the time being. We have the singers come up after I start and join me up on the stage. I invite you to stand and sing your heart out, because this is such a special song. Thank you. In Christ alone my hope is found. He is my light, my strength, my song. This cornerstone, this solid ground, firm through the fiercest drought and storm. What heights of love, what depths of peace, when fears are stilled, when striving cease. My comforter, my all in all, Here in the love of Christ I stand. In Christ alone, who took on flesh, fullness of God in helpless babe, this gift of love and righteousness, scorned by the ones he came to save. Till light of cross, as Jesus died, the wrath of God was satisfied. For every sin on him was laid. Here in the death of Christ I live. There in the ground his body lay, light of the world by darkness slain. Then bursting forth in glorious day, up from the grave he rose again. And as he stands in victory, sin's curse has lost its grip on me. For I am his, and he is mine, bought with the precious blood of Christ. No guilt in life, no fear in death, this is the power of Christ in me. From life's first cry to final breath, Jesus commands my destiny. No power of hell, no scheme of man can ever pluck me from his hand, till he returns and calls me home. Here in the power of Christ I stand. Here in the power of Christ I stand. Thank you very much.